We are talking about the movie The Haunting of Borley Rectory. This one is directed by Stephen M. Smith, who I suppose most notably has directed a 2017 Howling movie. And this comes in late February 2019 by High Flyers Entertainment in the UK. And it's not the first movie to be based on the Borley Rectory legend. There's been a couple of kind of lower budget movies. So Borley Rectory was actually one of the purportedly most haunted places in the UK. The actual building now is destroyed. It was destroyed, I believe, in 1944 completely through a mysterious fire some years before that, and then completely demolished a few years later. So the story here is actually set in 1944, and we have an American soldier who is stationed near Borley Rectory in this kind of like old farmhouse, where this is a kind of a listening post. He's listening to kind of like the radio, trying to kind of decipher, German radio waves, basically, in the hopes of catching codes, etc. But while he's there, he's kind of menaced by visions of this kind of spectral nun. Oh yes, nuns are very popular in the last couple of years. So here we have another movie. So, you know, obviously he's kind of a little bit kind of like perplexed about what's going on, and as the movie progresses we have a couple of other kind of characters who are folded in, who maybe have to kind of help him kind of find out what's going on, along with this kind of, obviously, while she's kind of doing this job in the kind of the Second World War. As to what happens, well, you have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss The Haunting of Borley Rectory. So this is an old school classic style ghost movie. And kind of almost, it feels more like a play rather than a kind of a movie, so to speak. It kind of has that kind of like that feeling. So let's talk about what works first of all. I'm going to say I've watched a few kind of low budget movies, particularly ones that have had nuns in the last kind of 2 years or so. But this one, I've got to say, is a little different. It's certainly a slower paced. It's more of a kind of a paranormal mystery rather than a kind of a horror film per se. There is actually some pretty good visuals in regards to this nun character who, in some shots, looks pretty fearsome and actually somewhat kind of similar to The Conjuring's Valak, I will say. Probably by design, but there you go. But nonetheless, there are a couple of really neat scenes here where you have the glowing eyes and stuff, and this nun looks pretty fearsome, so that was quite good. Zach Clifford, who plays our main character, I actually think does a pretty good job here in the leading role, and actually reminds me of a young Harrison Ford, I must say. So he was pretty good in this role, and it's kind of, like I say, it almost plays more like a kind of a TV drama in a lot of ways, and you're unravelling the mystery about what's kind of going on, and obviously you're quite intrigued to find out kind of where the story goes, particularly obviously because this is kind of based on, you know, a real place, and apparently it was actually filmed in Borley as well. So the very kind of the place where this actually originally was all kind of taking place, they've actually filmed here. So that's actually quite neat, I think. There are a couple of kind of like, it tries to kind of have this kind of like more of a kind of a grander scale by having this, a few scenes kind of shot in a World War II setting. It's obviously a lower budget movie, but they do a decent enough job here, if I think of maybe capturing the kind of the essence of what's going on. And you do feel like the characters have some kind of growth and have somewhat of an arc. What doesn't work for me, there's some odd choices in regards to camera work. I would say there's a lot of scenes here that are like extreme close-up. That's really disconcerting. You don't even get like the full face. It's almost like this. You kind of like, you're having this kind of frame, and it's just like for like multiple shots, and it's like, it's a little weird for a film, I have to say. I mean, you see sometimes like in TV, but yeah, not so much in film. But yeah, it was that. So there's some odd camera work here. I don't think the narrative storytelling is particularly good at times. There's a prologue at the beginning with this character Marianne and this kind of this guy played by Rad Brown, and it just doesn't seem to fit in with the rest of the film. And that would have been better just coming out of it, if you ask me. I didn't really get what that scene was really about. That could have been done with coming out. It kind of made the beginning of this movie a little bit confused. And there are a few scenes that go on that just seem to be a little bit kind of poorly thought out. I don't want to give anything away, but kind of a scene towards the end of the movie where we may learn the origin about what's kind of going on. I think is poorly put together and doesn't kind of flow particularly well in a particularly good narrative sense, without kind of giving everything away here. This may be a little bit too slow for some people. This is not a horror movie with lots of scares and stuff. Like I said, it's more of a paranormal drama, so that's kind of maybe will put some people off. And there are unfortunately some kind of poor acting here as well. Like I said, Zach Clifford, who is our main character, I think does a pretty good job here. And there's a couple of female actresses I think also do a fairly good job, but there are some co-actors here that I feel are quite weak, unfortunately. So they kind of bring the level of acting in certain areas kind of a little bit down to a certain degree. We've got one who is not very confident in acting, and another one who really overacts as well. So it's kind of like a little bit of a mixed bag in regards to the acting. And when it's all said and done, this movie is, there's not a lot happens, and I don't think you can kind of more or less kind of guess where it's going to go to a certain degree. I don't think it kind of tries to break ground in any kind of meaningful ways in regards to kind of storytelling. It's somewhat kind of workmanlike in that regards, but it's a kind of like a pleasant, watchable kind of like classic style kind of ghost story with a fairly kind of haunting score, some fairly neat visuals in regards to this kind of like this very scary looking nun that will kind of remind you of Valak to a certain degree, and a kind of a mystery that you're somewhat intrigued to kind of find out where it's going to go. I'll give this one a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.